we had a lot of children where there was selective mutism, or there were children who just didn't want to talk, or lots of avoidance of going out, high level of anxiety, as you would expect, quite a lot of hypervigilance, and which led to kind of agoraphobia and kind of fear of being outside and fear of being in enclosed places and that sort of stuff. So you weren't just dealing with depression and anxiety, there was quite a lot of other things. And the more the cases were presented, the more I felt, oh my God, this needs a system. But we tried our best as much as we could to support these families. So it's not as easy as I'm presenting it. There was times I was literally struck thinking, what do I do with this information? You know, how do I help this person? How do I help this staff to help this mother? A couple of times we invited them to come in, like the widows came in, and I had a virtual session where I would assess. And quite a lot of physical symptoms being presented, like people coming in with lots of physical symptoms where there isn't necessarily a physical cause. And which takes me to the next topic of the taboo around mental health. And how do you tell someone you're actually struggling with mental health issues here? Because mental health equals madness, unfortunately. And it isn't. We've all had mental health issues. I've had it. Everybody else has it. When I lost my father, I had issues with grief. When I lost my mother, it took me a good couple of years to manage my own grief. These are all mental health issues. However, I guess if I have a physical issues, I can speak about it in public. I can say, oh, I've got a really bad stomach and I had this investigation done and sometimes we're proud and able to talk about it, but do I say I'm struggling with anxiety? Of course not, okay? I guess that's the community we deal with, and that's not just here, that's just in general, even in the current society I work in, even in Britain, you have families are struggling to accept that there is mental health in the family. And then I remember speaking to a particular woman who was struggling a lot. They call it hysteria, but the poor woman, she was widowed. She lost the man of her life, the father of her children, the love of her life, as she described it. And then she had to lose her own home as well, her own independence. Now she has to live with the in-laws. Unfortunately, there was domestic violence there as well. You know, now that you don't have a husband, then you're controlled by where you go, where you come, financially sometimes. I'm not saying that was the case with quite a lot of them, but that's the theme that came up. What do you do with the domestic violence? You know, or the orphans as well. You know, there were a few of them weren't even going to school. You know, who's going to look after that? What's going to happen? Where do you take that? So of course, all this, I felt it was being addressed in one place. So whenever I spoke about it, I remember like the team lead would say, well, let me speak to someone and see what we can do about it. A particular family that Al-Ayn supported to house. And I was really impressed by that, and genuinely impressed by that they managed to house her, because she was in a very difficult situation where there was a lot of violence towards her, and her money was taken away, like her husband's money. You know, there's a lot of tribe issues, there's a lot of inheritance issues. So all that gets into the child's mental health, the mother's mental health. And my God, that team, with all my respect for them, they work so hard. In Iraq, we know there's a lot of trauma. And what do we mean by that? You know, when people are going by their daily lives, suddenly there's an explosion. When you say goodbye to your husband to go to work, and then suddenly you hear he was beheaded, or he was killed in a bombing. Of course, they all have impacts on us. Some people have to go and see the body. Some people have witnessed a bombing. And of course, your brain doesn't get the chance. There's a lot of biological factors there that when you're going through a very frightening experience, your brain doesn't necessarily gets to process everything. You know, some part of your brain shuts down to protect you. But while it's doing that to protect you, you don't get to process what's happening around you. And then you start living life based on all the symptoms that kind of you try and manage those symptoms but you're keeping it going as well. Like a lot of people, I don't want to talk about it. When your brain says, talk about me, I want you to process me, I don't want to talk about it, you know. And are we avoidant? Of course we are. If we're frightened of not knowing what to do with something, we avoid dealing with it, and it sits there and it lingers and it lingers and it gets worse.